Good. This the only one you brought?
Yeah, I bought. Well, I didn't. She surprised me. I didn't think she was coming. I didn't know she was coming.
Well,
Or him.
yeah. I'll say if you didn't brought your clothes, we'd have had to knock out a wall or something.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Does everybody know Laure J? Is that why you're here? Yeah, Laure J.
They're friends of ours from Sanford, and
Sam.
they came today because they saw that it was occurring. They
All
had
right.
the
Do y'all know Jesse Tillett?
yes. I used to work with his wife.
Better known as Jesse Wade? Yeah.
We're from down east, we're two neighbors.
Jesse Wade, who it is. Yes. Yeah, Jesse Wade grew up on Hartside.
Tell who you are. Come on.
It doesn't matter. No, everybody here's trying to forget. I'm the daughter of Laure Jean's husband's army buddy. Is that right?
Yep.
And I remember going to Atlantic. And used to, if you lived in Hartside, you went to Atlantic, that was a journey.
Mm-hmm.
And because I didn't know anybody down there. And but Daddy always had to go see Roderick because they had been in the army together. So,
Yeah.
And then Laure Jean and I became fast friends back in the day of the NYF, the UNYF. And she was the, I don't know what they called you.
Counselor, I think, or something.
You were the adult in the room.
Yeah.
At local sub-district, that's how I got to know her. And then at the district, and at Camp John Lee, and that's back there. And the Methodist Church was the Methodist Church.
Yeah.
And that's another conversation. But anyway, Laure Jean is the mother of Eric Stephen, Joy, Barbara, Esther, and
Eddie.
And so,
And that's not Eddie, that's Eddie's wife.
that's Eddie's wife, but that's why she's here. So if you went through East Carter for about a 20-year span, you were in the class with some of Laure Jean's crowd.
That's true.
Right?
That's
so anyway,
true.
Laure Jean has taken on a new life at this point, and now she's a writer. And I keep checking Netflix to see when you're gonna have your series on there. But I love you, Laure Jean. You're the best.
And I love you.
Yep, that's who she is.
Try to love everybody. I don't know, I have not been to one of these gatherings and knew just a little bit about it when Karen and she involved me. So I took out my iPad and looked them up, and the first one I watched was Connie Mason with her guitar, strumming the guitar, singing songs, and then Jeannie. And then the next one I watched, they had a screen up front, and Karen and this guy were pointing out everything on the screen and talking. And I said, what have I gotten myself into? I can't sing, I can't play a guitar.
So she calls me in a panic and says, I don't have anything to show them. Yes, she did.
But anyway, I'll just tell you a little bit about how I got started on this at very late in life. I never had any idea about writing anything, or definitely not writing a book that people would seem to enjoy. But during COVID, there were so many empty days in a house by myself that I was entertaining myself. I think I'm going to let my imagination start running wild and jotting it down. And when I say jotting it down, she has, I don't know how on earth she has ever known what I was saying, because when you say hand scrolling, that's what I do. And a dozen different pieces of paper here and there. But anyway, and this was my first version. I did this for my grandchildren, mostly to give them at Christmas. And I think I bought 25, had 25.
For every family member.
Yeah, and that's what they got for Christmas. And nobody knew it except Nita and Susan Mason, who is an artist friend that lives in Atlantic. And I showed her the first things that I started scribbling, and I was so sort of embarrassed to even show it to her. But she brought it back and said, Laure, you've got to do something with this. I said, what do you mean? She said, you've got to do something with it. So then I showed Nita. So they were the only two people that knew anything about it until we got these. And for Christmas, I don't know how disappointed they were, but everybody got them. And they opened them, and Anita said nobody could open those gifts until everybody opened it at the same time at her house. So that was this. And then I felt like there was more to this story that I had not had time to do. So I started writing some things that developed into this. And
That appeared in composition books and loose leaf paper and
just a mess,
This is the rest
complete
of it.
mess, a complete mess. But she's so good to me. She's she got it down so everybody could read it. I'll just take a few of the different pages and tell you a little bit in case there's somebody here that hasn't read it. And
So this is a novel, and the first question most of her kids asked her was that Miss So and So, or was this based on? And there's a qualifier, a disclaimer in the beginning that says this is fictional, no real characters. But we all know that just growing up, there were impressions made upon her mind and heart. So it may be like a conglomeration of things that she was exposed to, maybe.
well,
right?
no, I couldn't write about people. I could have been sued if if they had not liked this. But this I started out, and it's very easy to read. It's each chapter has a person that you're going to hear about in the chapter, and I'll start off and read this little bit that's on page 8. And I had hoped to have a train case like we had back then, and I couldn't locate one quickly enough. Nita tried, but she brought me a real train case
Yeah,
that
it
we
was a
decided not. Yeah, so we didn't bring that up. But anyway, Wes, who is the bus driver, brought the bus to a stop and opened the door. Lana reached to the overhead compartment to retrieve her train case. All the girls had train cases which matched the luggage and held toiletries, combs, and brushes, the essentials for being presentable. And
Well, I'm just gonna add, I'm old enough that I have a train case.
well, had I known you could have brought it
And
today.
it had a mirror inside of it.
Yeah.
And what was that outside? Was it leather or fabric?
It was leather, probably faux leather.
Yeah.
And you still have yours?
No, I don't.
Okay. Okay.
Occasionally I'll see them in the thrift store. I'll pick you up.
Okay.
If I see them.
And then on page 33, I'm going to be talking about Lana and Mark. One by one, everyone left, just until just she and Mark were there treading the water. Suddenly he went under the water, and she felt herself being raised up, and out of the water. She grabbed Matt's hair and gave a little scream. He said, laughing, "My lady, look at the diamonds on the water." Looking around, it truly was like diamonds sparkling on the water. And there was the moon. She felt her breath catch in that moment. She raised her hand. She released her hold on his hands and raised her arms towards the moon and said, "Yes, diamonds all around. It's just so lovely."
Can you add on to that the name of the book and why you named it that?
Yeah, that's why, the value of diamonds. And I want to read to you about diamonds. Carbon is one of the basic elements of any living thing. Diamonds are a mineral composed of pure carbon, the hardest naturally occurring substance known, the most popular gemstone, known as the most essential element of life, the second most abundant after oxygen in any human body. Does that mean we're diamonds? And then on page 42, May was standing with the group we're going on now because this is a different character. This is May. May was standing with a group who had just finished square dancing. Bob, the piano player that night, began playing Embraceable You. Hugh looked over at the group and seeing May, he hesitated, but when Bob began to play What Is This Thing Called Love, he walked over and just extended his hand to May.
You're teasing them with that story.
And I'm going to read, I can't sing it, but I'm going to read you the words. I don't know if anybody here will be familiar with it, but the embraceable you. Embrace me, my sweet embraceable you. Embrace me, my irreplaceable you. Just one look at you, my heart grew tipsy in me. You and you alone bring out the gypsy in me. I live all the many charms about you. Above all, I want my arms about you. Come to mama, my sweet embraceable you. And then, what is this thing called love? What is this thing called love? This funny thing called love. Just who can solve its mystery? Why should it make a fool of me? I saw you one wonderful day. You took my heart and threw it away. That's why I asked the Lord in heaven above, what is this thing called love? And then on page 54, we're back with Lana. Monday morning, it was back to the store, where there was always something to do. May started stocking the empty spaces on the shelf, marking each of them. 8 o'clock coffee, 79 cents. Green beans, 17 cents. And I didn't have all of the things to bring, but Camay soap, you got 3 bars for 25 cents. Peanut butter was 27 cents a jar, and corned beef was 43 cents a can.
You know what's funny about that? Is now it's often $19.99, $9.99, and back then those odd numbers of 17 cents, 23 cents.
And so this book went on. I don't have any other things I don't believe to read until you wanted me to read suggest I read the last page or?
Oh, I don't want to give away the story.
No,
so
no.
Don't do that.
Okay.
But there might be some, how many have actually read the book? So did you have any questions? I know some of you have been to her sharing before, but were there any thoughts or questions you had to ask her about her personal experience or about the book? And I think Karen does have these in stock downstairs if anyone wants to. When at the end, she'd be happy to autograph it for you.
I have a question. Is the second book a sequel to this or
Yes.
a whole new idea?
The one that we're working on now? Yeah, because that second book that she worked on became the epilogue to the first book. And so we started over basically and tied those two together, and it became the second first book, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about should I go ahead and mention that now? She's asking about the next book.
Oh, yeah.
So actually this week we're probably going to press on, that is a non-fictional book that she has been working on. And I won't spoil all the surprises, but it is called Growing Up at Sea Level. The pun word's intentional. And it is truly like more memoirs. Again, short chapters of these reflections, and they're topical. Everything from sea level itself with a little history of that community, to remembering growing up on a particular road, community stores, Sundays, what they were like, wartime, And then there's this, and I'm going to read you an excerpt here in a minute, but there is a section, and it's very reflective in her 93 years. And she sort of had her part done for the last year or so, but we've been working on, fine-tuning some of the memories and sort of drawing those out of her a little bit. But in the back of it, there's a whole section on recipes. Some of her favorite recipes, or just recipes she remembered being frequent in her home, with a lot of people coming in that home, extended family members, elders of the churches of all denominations, just family coming in town, and these meals. So this morning she made one of the recipes for you, and this is molasses bread. We know it as Granny S's, but that's who taught us. But Laura made it just as good. So we've got some toothpicks and this if everyone wants to try a piece at the end.
And Granny S is her mother.
Yeah, Esther, that's right.
And we have another girl that grew up on sea level and has her memories that were a little bit later in life than mine, but she has a lot too that she likes to reflect on.
Yes.
We have a lot of things in common.
I can't wait for you to read this next one.
Oh, I can't wait. Can't wait. I know Vernon's store's gonna be.
It's definitely mentioned. I'll stop a second maybe and just give you a sneak preview of the next book. And then we can, I know it sort of overlaps a little bit because of the time frame this one is written. So there might be some commonality questions. So, and we'll talk more in depth about this one another time. But this section is called Memories of War. This is chapter 7. Although I came along several generations later, a couple of stories shared with me about my maternal ancestors are related to their service during the Civil War. Whereas my great-grandfather, Bishop Hamilton, was killed at the Battle of Fort Macon, other family members joined the Union because they paid a better pension. None of my maternal or paternal families owned slaves. As mentioned, my grandmother Melancy's father and Mama's grandfather, Sergeant William Bill Cullifer, was one of the 5 men from Carteret County who were a part of the crew which fired the last cannon at Appomattox. But during my lifetime, my memories of conflict were related to World War II. Each evening around supper time, I remember sitting very quietly in the dining room where the heater was, where all of us gathered around the small radio to try to hear any war news of the day by radio commentator Gabriel Hader. Hader. It's spelled like heater with 2 T's.
Yeah.
Although we didn't know exactly where they were, we had family members serving in the war, and we were hungry for any nuggets of news we could hear from the announcer's voice in between all of the static. We also received warnings by radio, and perhaps from several of the local military bases at the time, that enemy German ships were close to our coastline. That news required us to use blackout curtains in the windows. People had ration books to use at the local stores for essentials like flour, salt pork, lard, canned milk, and the newly invented margarine, since butter was not available. The margarine came colorless with a little pack of yellow food coloring to stir it in, which made it the color of actual butter. Who knew? Our family was fairly self-sufficient because Pa, grandfather Freeman, grew a variety of vegetables and Mother canned for the winter. That's the Mason.
That was the way, that's what you had to put your,
Yeah.
yeah.
The tea was impossible to get our hands on during the war, but my grandmother Henrietta was proper, knew how to make tea from the leaves of yopon trees. Although it wasn't the same as the tea we're accustomed to, I guess something was better than nothing. My Aunt Nanny's sons, Harold Jr., Herschel, and Hilton Lee, were drafted, they're the H boys, aren't they? Were drafted into the service like many other local young men were. Harold and Herschel in the Navy, and Hilton Lee in the Merchant Marines. Being drafted into military service took some of the young men away, and having lived near the ocean and sound side of the water, it was natural for some of them to enlist in the U.S. Coast Guard. Some were able to stay close to home since there were Coast Guard stations along our North Carolina coast. Harold sent me a letter which was written on a small piece of very thin paper folded to fit in the small, thin airmail envelope. Other relatives sometimes received letters that had content that was cut out. Evidently, the letter had been reviewed by the military and wasn't approved to be shared, probably for security or public image reasons. I'm sure my cousins witnessed many things that they never forgot. One day, grandmother Henriette received a letter from one of her brothers living in Florida with the sad news of his son being killed in action. I'm not sure of the details about where he served or which branch of service, but I remember her giving me the letter to take to Aunt Nanny's house so she could read it too. Although we were separated from relatives, the bond we shared remained strong, and we mourned along with them. There was a movie theater in the next fishing village of Atlantic, located where the current fire department is. We would all, groups of family and friends, pile up in the back of the Taylor's fish truck to go see a movie, using a wooden fish box to climb into the back. Before the film began, they would show newsreels, like every other movie theater across the nation was doing, with actual scenes of areas where the war was being fought. Reporters traveled to areas across the world to photograph and film action and war in order to bring news back to the local communities. I'm sure the news was already outdated by the time it reached us all the way down east. I'll never forget that spring day in May when the war ended. We heard rumors during the day and were eager to listen to the radio that evening. Once again, huddled around the radio, we heard President Truman announce that the war was over. I remember the special feeling, thinking life would return to normal and we would live the rest of our lives war-free. A sense of peace came over me, feeling like everything would be like it was before. No more sad news, no more worried looks on the faces of mothers whose sons were serving somewhere, no more ration books. We would be able to get real butter again, and no more Yopon tea. There would be no more war footage on the big screen or radio updates every evening. My cousins would be coming home. How wrong was I? How many times have we been involved in war since?
Now, how old were you, Laura?
During that time, about maybe
10-ish?
11, 12, or not formally
like
teenage
18.
years. Yeah.
Because she was born in 32.
Yeah.
So that gives you some math.
My grandfather, John Bupton, raised in Sea Level. He enlisted in the Coast Guard, and he was at, it was
Those,
Portsmouth,
yes,
and it later burned down.
yes.
Coast Guard station.
And you'll hear
So
more
it's so-
details. There's some overlap in that book in the different chapters because they're interrelated. But you'll hear more. There are photos that Coast Guard station across some core banks, which actually the posts of that station were later floated across and are the posts on her house,
The front porch.
or the front porch
Yeah.
that used to be Eddie's dad, his grandfather's,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
That built
We
that
live in
house.
his grandparents' house.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm going to skip over and do something from the last that I wrote in this book. And this part goes on to include people living in a facility, a nursing home. And the main character in this is Joe, and it tells how he ended up getting there. But I'll tell you just about one of the people living there, and it so relates to what we see now. After the evening meal, the staff would begin preparing everyone for bed. Josie watched as they would take one after another to their rooms. She had a desperate feeling come over her. Another day, another night. If she were at home now, she would be cleaning up for her evening meal, washing her dishes, sweeping her kitchen floor, and maybe starting the bread rising for breakfast. Her house had been her world. There was always something to be done inside and out, and she'd always taken pride in it. Now what was she to do? What had happened to her plants? She knew her daughter had found a home for her dog, Bessie. She wondered if Bessie missed her. Had she gotten used to being in new surroundings? After all, they had been together for many years. Was Bessie as homesick as she was for this familiar life? Was this it? Was this their no more going home again? There was no need for this. She could have managed. She could have done her household work in a wheelchair. Why couldn't they understand? She couldn't help but feel anger rising, anger at everything and everyone, and most of all with herself. What has she done to cause her body to stop? And then,
Ms. Laura, how large was your class, your graduating class?
18 people.
And how many are still here?
Pardon?
How many are still here?
One person that I graduated with is still living. Another woman that lived right down Nelson Neck Road, like I did in Sea Level. And we're the only two left. She's living in Charlotte now.
And there's one gentleman that I'm not sure who it is the oldest person on Atlantic. Does anybody know who that guy is?
Yes, J.C. Davis.
J.C. Davis.
But he's actually from Davis.
Okay. And then Aunt Marie, who is her sister-in-law,
She's
is a second. Yeah. And then Laura, I think. So
Yeah.
Marie will be 94 in September.
that's right.
For a little while in the year, we're the same age.
Yeah. Right now.
Yeah.
Were you going to share anything else?
Yes, just
Okay.
one thing. I'm going to, taking the urn in her arms and carrying a book, she began the walk to the creek behind the house. She laid the book down on the new grass that was beginning to grow. She walked to the edge of the water, opening the urn, gently spilling the ashes into the creek. The ashes began to float on down into the water. As she stood watching them, she began singing softly. In moments like these, I sing out a song. I sing out a love song to Jesus. In moments like these, I lift up my hands. I lift up my hands to the Lord, singing, I love you, Lord. Singing, I love you, Lord. Singing, I love you, Lord. I love you. She walked back to where she had laid the book. Picking it up, she opened it to a marked page and began reading from C.S. Lewis, The Last Battle. All their life in this world and all their adventures had only been the cover and the title page. Now at last they were beginning chapter 1 of the great story which no one on earth has read, which goes on forever, in which every chapter is better than the one before. And so,
In different settings that we have been together doing this, it's been funny because some of the responses have been, I was sort of shocked. You know, I wasn't expecting some of the stuff in the book. And then a couple of them, I'll tell you the story. So when we were working on this, and it had just been released, and I did it as a Valentine's gift to her on the release day last year, right? And Eddie and I were in Boone, and anyway, he had picked up a newspaper, saw this article about a 90-something-year-old man that was at a Hardee's doing some kind of book signing about a book he had written about churches, I think Baptist churches in the area or something. And Eddie was telling Laura about it. And she was like, gosh. And Eddie's like, what's wrong? And she goes, well, he's this old 90-year-old man that's written about this nice subject about churches. And I've written this, like, controversial book. And I said, well, that's why we love you. And like our boys and grandkids of this is a grandchild, they were, I think, like, gosh, Grandma's got some imagination here. You know, but when we've talked about it, you know, you have felt, you've experienced deep love in your life and still experience it, even in Roderick's passing. And that's really clear, I think, in the book, you know, that experience of love and the different shapes and angles and circumstances that it occurs. But I think that what people have appreciated is that you're real about it. But I did say, Laura, the reader gets to Jesus eventually in the book, so hang on. It's not about Jesus.
And I didn't listen.
Any other thoughts or questions about the characters or book?
Just that I've heard a lot of people, they still say, I bet that was so-and-so in that book.
Yeah.
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 But it wasn't. And actually what I'm working on now and will also be about things that I knew about people's lives. I'm not picking out one person to say this was their story. But you know, life, things happen. I mean, to everybody.
And what she's referring to is, we're going to press on the memoirs book, which her grandchildren have really been asking her to do that kind of thing. But she's also working on another novel that's called I forgot what it's called.
Second chances, question mark.
Second Chances. And it's about 3 women friends.
Mm-hmm.
That's all we'll say about that. But
Mm-hmm.
so that's in the works too. So she's working on another novel.
Aunt Laura, where's your fountain of youth?
On that front porch, I guess.
Yeah.
Joy, have you got any comments or thoughts about
For
your
everybody to know, this is my daughter Joy and her husband Adrian and her daughter Hannah. And this is my niece by marriage, Jeannie. So, family.
So where is everyone from in the room?
I just moved to Atlantic in May
Really?
after a long stretch. So
And where were you from?
I was lived in Morganton,
Okay.
about
Yeah.
7 hours away.
Yeah.
So but been coming
Wow.
up here forever. So finally got a little place in Atlantic. My husband had passed away, so just finished up the plan and came out here. So I'm here to learn.
Nice.
Okay, well, Adewale, I want to hear more about where you're located in Atlanta.
Okay.
And you might be her neighbor.
Okay.
I am from Connecticut originally. Spent all my grown-up years teaching in Atlanta and moved here a year ago. I lived in Beaufort.
And Beaufort.
And I'm here because my mom's people were from down east, and I've been doing family history for
Really?
about 25 years.
Do you know what part of Denny's?
Straits and Portsmouth. That's how I was.
Yeah.
I lived here, Portsmouth.
And we were just mentioning Portsmouth a minute ago.
Yeah.
Nice.
I moved to Beaufort in 2004, and I'm a friend of Jeannie's.
And we met before at one of these, didn't we?
I
think so, yeah.
Yeah, I've been to a couple of them.
Yeah. And you were from where originally?
Originally, I grew up in Hialeah, Florida, which is
Yeah.
a suburb of Miami.
I'm a down east.
Yes.
Never ride Atlantic Sea though.
Yeah.
Back there?
I live in Beaufort. I've been there 45 years. I was
It's
the managing editor of the News Times.
Nice. Yeah.
I married a local.
Yeah. And Eddie actually worked for the News Times.
Well, I was wondering if you were.
Yes. Out of college, he was a sports editor
Sports
and
editor.
photographer.
Yeah,
That's right.
sweetheart.
Yeah. I recognize you.
I'm originally from Maryland, was born in Baltimore, and I've lived in eastern North Carolina ever since I graduated from college. And I'm a friend of Jeannie's for probably
40 years almost.
A long time.
I knew she was a good person when she told me she had chest weight.
Yeah. She was ready for action. Jeannie lives in Beaufort,
But I'm from Atlanta.
yeah, from Atlantic. Joy and Adrian live in Morehead City. Hannah lives in Beaufort. And
Well, I was raised in Sea Level, and currently I live in Newport.
nice. Our friends here.
We're from Sanford, and Eddie is our minister, serves us well, and we have a place at Atlantic Beach. Come down,
So I
hopefully to move down permanently.
was glad I posted on my story this morning one more time, and they spotted it and came over, so that was a nice surprise.
Mhm.
So, what else?
I was just wondering, everybody knows everybody, but I don't know your background or anything about.
About me?
Yes.
Yeah, about you.
And we
Okay.
cover,
No Karen.
we cover more of that in the second book, but we don't say a lot here because it's
Yeah.
a novel. So why don't you share a little bit about yourself?
Oh,
Your
about
background.
myself, okay. Well, right here,
Oh,
I was
that's
born and raised in coastal North Carolina down the east community of Sea Level. And I raised my children in nearby Atlantic. My daddy was worked on the water. He had a boat and did various things on the water, and that's how he made his living. And in the book that I wrote about growing up there, I'll be saying a whole lot more about what he did and how we lived, because we ate from the water and we ate from a garden. And actually, in thinking about these items and looking at the small price on them, they weren't small to us then.
No.
They were
It's
high prices.
proportional, yeah.
And a lot of things we couldn't go to the store and get. And I think everybody in the community had a little page at the store that things were charged on, and then when you got the money, you went and paid your bill. And the storekeepers let you do that. And you knew everybody. I mean, all the houses, I think, had children. So, and it was our world, just living at sea level.
And after she, and we'll talk about churches and all of that in that book, and after she graduated from high school, she did go to Raleigh for a short period to go to a women's business college, school, and then came home and married Roderick.
I want to say just a little,
Yes.
bring it up to date a little bit. Her boys, and everybody's probably seeing this in their families. One of her sons recently got engaged. There's an engagement party now where they throw this big party, and the guy has to get down on his knees and be photographed, her accepting the ring. And I think back, Rod wrote me a letter and said, when we go home for Christmas, he was at Camp Pickett in the Army. And he was getting off for Christmas, and I was going to go home from school. He said, when we go home at Christmas, can we get married? And that's what we did.
That was him being down on his knees.
Yeah, and then he went back to Camp Pickett, and I went back to Raleigh to school. And then after that, we didn't wait a whole long time to have a family.
10 months later.
Anyway, our first child was born. He was still at Camp Pickett. And Eric was born over at the hospital here. And he got to have the weekend off to come take me home from the hospital when you had spent 5 days having a baby. And that weekend, he left after that weekend to go to Germany for a year. So I was back and forth with my in-laws and my parents, and I had one spoiled child, I'll tell you.
Well, and then
And they would say he still is.
no comment. So,
How'd you know I was thinking?
so Rod came home eventually and was part of the family store, Wexon Hill and Sons. And Laura, along the way, started like keeping the books for the store, raising, the latter part of raising children, doing that. And then when I was in the picture, and that'll be 40 years ago, she went back to school and became a CNA.
Mm-hmm.
And then she worked for many years at Sailor Snug Harbor.
17 years.
17 years.
I
there was that
finished,
background
yeah.
as well. So
I quit working
influenced.
when I was 75 because my husband was ill.
Yeah,
And
at 75.
yeah,
She was still
So she,
doing-
in essence, began an outside of the home career
Yes.
at the time that most people
She was in her
are thinking about
50s.
retirement.
Yeah,
They're
Mhm.
counting the days to
Mhm.
retirement. She was going to work.
that's right.
And as a family, my grandparents and my parents were very much about education. That was, you were to become educated and give into the community via the church or the local community outreaches and whatever. That was instilled within us to be workers. And she used to say, Grandmama Dory's people, most people work in order to live, but these people live in order to work. And that was bred in us.
Yeah,
So,
Amen.
yeah, that work ethic is deep. But you're right, because I was doing the math, and she was in her early 50s when she got her CNA license. So and she had already been doing the books, but doing that from home in a little closet space upstairs.
and when she stopped working there, she had people begging her to come back
Yes.
to work.
yeah. Well, I quit one time and said that's it, and then someone, don't let your license expire. Don't do that. Don't make that mistake. So I went back to work 8 hours. You had to come back and work at Snow Harbor 8 hours in order to keep your license renewed. And I went back to do that 8 hours, and before I got home, I was back on schedule.
And then the full circuitous story is that there were periods when Roderick was ill that he spent several stints down at Sailor Snug Harbor. You know, we spent Thanksgiving there one year with him, you know, for some sort of respite kind of care, but,
Yeah.
you know, full
And
story.
Gina's parents were in there at about the same time, I think.
My mother was.
Yeah.
And is everyone familiar with what Sailor Snug Harbor is? Okay.
Yeah, I had my wedding dress or a suit or whatever it was. My roommate in Raleigh school, we went over to another friend's house who had a sewing machine, and she made a rose-colored woolen suit, or it was a top and skirt. And that was what I got married in.
You've got that color on it?
Yeah, almost this color. But we came home and went to the parsonage to get married, and we were the second couple that he had ever married. So knocked on the door and I said, we wondered if you could marry us. So he agreed, and we went in their living room, and they had a glass top coffee table, and they had this little girl that I guess was maybe 18 months old or something. She was going around that coffee table the whole time, and the preacher was in the ceremony. She was with her bottle on this glass top table. And yeah, that was part of the getting married situation. But
And the witnesses?
was a friend and his wife. And
And it was done.
oh yeah, the other part. The preacher went over into his book and started reading, and it was a burial situation. It was a burial. Yeah, it was a burial. He said, yeah.
Instead of a later.
Yeah.
I'm glad you didn't take that as all.
Yeah, and we had the weekend home, and then we went to the Jefferson Hotel, which was the hotel in this area, and spent the weekend in Morehead City. I went back to Raleigh, and he went back to Camp Pickett, and he would try to get a ride home. And one time he came to Raleigh, and we rode the bus to it.
And where did you live as newlyweds? Tell them where you lived.
Oh, we lived with his parents.
And then there was a building in the back.
Oh,
of
at the store there was, in the back of the store, there was a big room.
Winston Hill and Sons.
Yeah, and there was a sink in there that you could draw up water or whatever. And we went with 2 cribs in that room for a little while. We had a fold-out sofa and a table with chairs, and a stove that was, a cook stove was over in the other corner, and then down at the end of the hall was the shower and bathroom, the commode, down at the end of that. Very small place.
And then when she was expecting her third child, the one after Joy, Barbara, Rod was away, and you were having a
Yeah,
house
he went
built.
back. He had worked in the store for a while, and he said, I don't think we're going to be able to get a house of our own. But if I go back to sea, if I go to sea, we can get our house. So he did, and Barbara was born, and she was 6 months old before Rod got to see her.
So she was at home with 2 children, pregnant, and building a brick house.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. So, and now I appreciated that. I'm telling you, finally, my own. Not that it was bad, because his parents and mine they loved having us there. And I really think that Rod's daddy would have liked for all of us to have been there at the same time. Our parents and Marie's and Neil's, and anyway, the store was actually part of the house in a way. There was kids in there all the time. Yeah.
So did you have to have marriage license
Oh yeah.
those days?
Oh, well,
like
we
you
got
already
those.
had
We got
those?
those in Beaufort and got the marriage license. And
They
your
didn't-
blood
they
test. You had to have a blood test too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They just didn't give the preacher a heads up.
Yeah.
They had their own plans.
Yeah. Not exactly knowing what we were going to do.
Well, and your house, you grew up next door to the store. Jeannie's family did, so it was all a community thing.
But that is not the store in this book now. Let me emphasize. That was not the store that is in this book. The store that was in this book, my Uncle Harold was married to my daddy's sister, and his brother owned that store, and their father had started it, and it was called B. Taylor and Sons. B.
Don't tell anything about that.
Okay.
But that's a good one for the next book. That's
Okay.
a hilarious story. But that's a sea level setting, not Atlantic. This book, Her Memories of Sea Level, also. And the store she's talking about, there is an outline in this next book that shows the floor plan of the store that someone drew out.
Mhm.
And I just went over it.
Mhm.
A lot like I hear farmers' children talk about, working on the farm and, kids. And my husband asked me one time, did my father know about child labor laws? I said, because I worked from the time I could walk. And I said, yeah, he knew, have more kids to have more work.
Or fewer and work them harder.
Oh yeah, because we live right beside the store. So.
Did that help answer some
Yeah, I
background?
was just curious
Yeah.
too, looking at Snug Harbor, so my husband's great aunt was there. So there were
Oh, who was that?
characters. It was Mary Davis, who used to be Donald Davis, that was administrator for Moorhead.
Uh-huh.
It was his wife.
That was later, because at first when I went there, you didn't take local people. Were not allowed. It was seamen people. Well, it was all. It was. Yeah, but there were women there too, also who sailed. Most of them had been.
Merchant Marines.
Yeah.
I was going to ask if you
Yeah.
met, because we met some characters.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm telling you, you did.
You
You did, and some of the most educated men. I remember some of them had like one that was a lawyer, and during the Depression, nobody was hiring lawyers, and he started going to sea, and he, I don't know what it's called when he mapped out the routes, or I don't remember the title of that, but yeah, and some of them, the music that they chose was really
Seems like
good.
this one guy was an Olympic rower.
Yeah.
There was one patient or sailor who had not been an artist prior to then. And
Oh,
became
yeah.
an artist. We've got a painting of his in our
Yeah,
house.
yeah, they had somebody come down and they had painting classes, and several of the men did really nice work.
And
Yeah.
if you ever hear Eddie talk about his dead man suits that he got, it was usually from sailors. It's
Yeah.
not funny. That died. And they would have like this, you know, they were their family because they were port to port. And they would have these sales and like fundraisers, and Eddie would just rack up. He was the right size. And he would say, Laura would say, "You look so good in that." He goes, "Well, this is that dead man suit that I could say."
But a funny story about him with his suit, he was working then as a youth director, I think, in Roxborough, at a church there. And he said he was running upstairs one day and he couldn't make any headway. And he realized, you know, the pants was out the hair, and he only had about this much leg.
That's a whole other book.
No, working there, I was just so happy that I did, because I just was working with those younger girls, and we always, and the people, you know, you go in a nursing home and everybody looks so sad, and you think this is such a pitiful, but you learned who those people were, and you didn't see them like that.
They have a story.
Yeah.
And then the place was magnificent with the artwork and artifacts. I mean, the woodwork. I mean, I hate to think what it looks like now.
It's really sad the way it ended up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know what all the situation is right now, but.
Well, Jeannie can tell you.
The land for Sailor Snook Harbor, as you know, Laura knows and Kim knows, was actually donated by the Taylor Brothers.
That's right.
So there is a history.
That's right.
There, you know, and they were the ones that got it relocated from Staten Island.
Which was a big deal.
It was a big deal when it came.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of antiques, a lot of valuables.
I mean, I really do pray that something good comes of that.
And the staff there, I know that a lot of the inspectors that came went home and told their family, now, if I have to go in a facility, take me there.
What year was it relocated there? I'm trying to put it in context to this book. What, do you know?
When it became Snook Harbor,
mid-70s.
Okay.
I would guess.
So it was
I'm
later.
not real sure.
Okay.
I know somebody that would know, Rose. I'll ask her.
Do you know?
Oh, so it was before I got here.
Yeah.
I got here in 79.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say mid-70s.
Okay.
What is it now?
It's vacated right now.
And it's just, it had gotten in bad shape, because the logic of putting a building like that on a place called sea level and putting it on the ground, you know, it was built on a slab on the
So
ground.
it had a lot of water.
Well, Catherine Cloud was down there when the storm came, and David had to get up on top of the bed because the water came into the
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some
Yeah, there's
about flooding.
Yeah, and I remember Rose, who's now, she was the last person to be the administrator there. Yeah, and at that time, she wasn't in that position at that time, I don't think, but she was working there. And we had the hurricane, and water was coming up, and Rose went out, and she walked around that building, and she prayed. Let this be our boundary. Lord, don't let it come any closer. Don't let it go in this building. And it didn't. The water did not go in. And there it was in a big, heavy rainstorm before that. It might come in. But
there were many times we would be traveling down when the boys were little, young, and we would, she would still be on a shift, not off of work yet. So that would be our first stop. We would stop there, go to the back door, sneak in and say, you know where it is, and just try to give her a quick hug in between patients. And then we would stop at sea level at Granny S's, and then the store or there, some good memories.
yeah, and I said Jeannie was from Sea Level, and she was also worked at Snook Harbor in there when I was there. She worked as a nurse. So.
Anything else?
No, it's been great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for being here. And Laura has, one of the things that she writes autographs in the books often is always look for the diamonds. You know, those treasures of our hearts, recognizing the beauty, core sound, you know, every time you drive by and see the sun sparkling on the water, you know, the inspiration for the book. And so we've got these little fake diamonds for everyone to take one just to remember to do that. Be intentional about looking for the diamonds every day. So take one to somebody, and then if you want molasses bread, you can